Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar, The Power of Integrations to Effectively Run Capital Programs, a Single Source of Truth. This event is brought to you by Engineering News Record and sponsored by Kahua. I'm Scott Seltz, publisher of Engineering News Record and your moderator for today's webinar, and thanks for joining us. Leading today's discussion, please welcome Nicholas Johnson, Chief Evangelist at Kahua. He comes to Kahua with over 40 years of experience in the industry. Starting his career as an electrical designer and drafter, he was among the first to create a career around CAD/CAM technology. When working IT for Atlanta-based Heery International, he learned about construction project management software and startup company Constructware, before they were acquired by Autodesk. Since then, Nicholas has held sales leadership positions at Autodesk, Trimble Connected Water, Beck Technology, and Trimble eBuilder. Joining Nicholas today, we'll also hear from Ian Hilder, Senior Technical Lead at Rundig Corporation, Steve Stankiewicz, Director of Field Application Services at Clark Construction Group, Vikas Handa, Chief Operating Officer at On Indus, and Brandon Shaw, Senior Manager of Consolidated Real Estate Systems at Floor & Decor. We'll hear more about our panelists later in the presentation. And now I'll hand things over to Nicholas Johnson from Kahua to kick off today's discussion. Nicholas?
Thank you, Scott. You know, it seems integrations become a four-letter word that often denotes expensive slowdown in productivity. Yet with the right program management information systems as your foundation, you can exchange data with ERP systems in real time. A single source of truth becomes reality by integrating with embedded solutions like DocuSign or Bluebeam. Ecosystem applications like PlanGrid, Primavera, P6, or ERP systems like Lawson, and JD Edwards, SAP, and Oracle. In other words, these problems can be solved in a way that is not overly burdensome. So today you'll hear why integrations are important and worthwhile, what most likely needs to be done, and how to properly prepare, plan, and execute based on best practices and lessons learned by our panel. So to begin with today, we have a wealth of experience with us. And I'd like to start by introducing Steve Stankiewicz, who brings over 30 years of construction industry experience in his role as Clark Construction's Director of Field Applications. Clark Construction is regularly ranked in ENR's top 15 contracting list, or their rankings. Also, I'll introduce Ian Hilder. Ian has over 13 years experience as a technical leader and a solution architect in software integrations and development. So let me one at a time ask Steve and Ian if they would simply give a little more introduction to themselves and to their company. Steve, can we start with you?
Sure. Steve Stankiewicz, Clark Construction. Been with Clark now 32 years. Started my career with Clark in the field in project management. Came into IT back in, it's probably been like since 98, I guess. When we started looking at project management systems and began managing our field applications at that point. And we've since been through a deployment of Prolog, of Constructware, and now Kahua, as well as integrations of Constructware to JD Edwards, Kahua to JD Edwards, and Kahua to SAP.
Wow. Ian?
Yeah, my name's Ian Hilder. I'm a senior technical consultant with Rundig. Previously, we have been working a lot with owners on the construction PMIS implementation side. So we focused initially on the Trimble platform for Proliance, and then have since moved on to supporting additional platforms like eBuilder. Kahua has been one of our largest transitioning PMIS platforms as Trimble has kind of refocused some of their efforts, and it has been a great relationship on our end.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for being with us today. And the first question I'm going to ask, we'll start with you, Steve. And I simply want to ask, what were some of the challenges you faced before this project with Kahua and Rundig? And what made you seek this kind of partnership? Really, what got this ball started rolling?
Okay, sure. So what got the relationship with Rundig started was Clark's project to move from JD Edwards to SAP. So, you know, that in itself is a kind of a major lift. We had to move from one ERP system to the other, reestablish the integration that we had between Kahua and the ERP. but it was also complicated with the fact that as we were doing this, basically our ops team was tasked with reimagining the change order process. So they were asked to go out and figure out if they had a chance to do whatever they needed to, or whatever they thought would improve the process, what would that entail? And they came back with several aspects, one of which was they found a lot of project teams were maintaining side spreadsheets to capture change order related information that wasn't in JD Edwards, or there was no place to store it. So there was really no place in Kahua to store it because we had mirrored JD Edwards in Kahua. They also had some automation processes that they wanted to do that would involve what they called parts and revisions. So they wanted to be able to allow the user to split a change into different parts in case they needed to submit part of it and hold back another part. And if a submission got rejected, say, they wanted to be able to just do a revision on that so that they could preserve the history of the original change, but basically restart it with new RFPs to the subs. So they needed to do all that to kind of encompass the vision of where they saw change orders going. So that meant we had to convert our Kahua interface to match that new vision, to add all the new fields, to add the new automation for parts and revisions, to add all the business logic that we would have to preserve our data integrity, really, to make sure that we were passing valid data into SAP. And we also needed to then just do the integration itself, just make Kahua talk to the new SAP system. So we kind of had those aspects going on. And then to establish a baseline, we went ahead and we established kind of a standard change order, just a simple kind of a prototype, a 2-item change. And we counted how many clicks in the old process that it took to submit it, from the time we got, say, the RFI response back through creating the change order, notifying the client, the RFP process out to the subs, and them returning it through our internal process, and then the subcontract change orders. And we counted, it was 347 clicks. But so it seems like a lot, but it gave us a baseline of something to shoot for improving on, to be able to measure when we got done, did we actually improve it? So that's kind of where we started. That was our challenge: improve the clicks, adopt this new format, add the automation, and then integrate it to SAP.
Thank you. That's an impressive scope of work, and it's impressive that you took the opportunity to look at the business process along the way. We've got an opportunity to shake things up. Maybe we don't need to put good technology around a bad process, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Ian, let me ask from your perspective, as the technologist, as the systems architect here, you probably looked at this effort from a different perspective, a different lens. So from your perspective, tell us about the scope of the project as you saw it when you received it, and the solutions that you came up with.
Yeah, so this project really had kind of 3 primary phases associated to it. As Steve mentioned, I think the first primary goal was to support the migration. So Kahua provides a lot of good tooling for looking at the differences between the 2 systems, right? JDE, SAP, they're not the same thing. They are finance systems ultimately, and they have a lot of the same functionality, but they have different APIs that back them. They need to consume data in slightly different formats. There are key data points that need to be linked up in ways that are not one-to-one with the way that JDE did it previously. So ultimately what we help Steve and his team do is identify what old data was still necessary on a lot of those records. How do we map that to the new data, or do we map that data depending on the change order and sort of how we wanted to cut off that process. Make sure that not just the change orders themselves were aligned properly, but because we are integrating with a finance system, we're talking about contracts downstream, we're talking about work breakdown, and making sure that the actual places where that money is going to land and the accounts that actually need to be set up properly in SAP are mapped. And is there a migration path that needed to be thought out around JD Edwards to get to the SAP side of those codes and all of the sort of the intricacies of a migration, right? Well, what needs to be added, what needs to be moved, and how do we make sure that we don't lose any data in that process? And so running really supported Steve and the middleware migration team that was doing some of the other work on their end as well to figure out how do you interact with the Kahua APIs effectively to get that data out. We, on the running side, helped add those necessary fields and create any new business rules that were necessary to add the new gates to support sort of the new SAP process, but also allow for the old JDE process while we were waiting for the actual cutover to happen, and kind of work our way through the sort of the migration flow to support them there. And then the second phase is kind of what Steve alluded to. So once we looked at the technical and migration hurdles that we needed to get over, we wanted to look at how do we help streamline the business process. So as Steve noted, they had some ideas about things that would help them streamline that process. This concept of splitting, revising change orders, right? You don't always want to bring every line item forward. If a contractor presents it to you on the sub side of things, it may be that you need 4 out of 5 items. And as Steve said, they had use cases where they were really just recreating change orders and kind of voiding out the wrong change orders, for lack of a better term. That they had extra lines that were unnecessary, and we wanted to provide a way for them to take a change order and say, hey, these 4 lines need to come forward, and these 3 are going to stay back because we're waiting on approval for them. And so Kahua gave us the tools from a platform perspective with its flexibility to create those custom business rules to kind of fit the process that the Clark construction team needed, which is kind of one of its, I would say, biggest strengths as a PMIS platform, which is that rather than kind of forcing the business team to conform to a brand new process, which again costs a lot of money, right? It requires a lot of training. It requires a lot of overhead to create a new process, get adoption of that new process, plus get adoption of a new piece of software. If you could take processes that were previously successful or were being done in a slightly different manner across the organization and map that onto the technology, that adds, efficiency gains ultimately to the whole team, and then it gives the business visibility that they need to see where that data is and how to get it out of the system, again, which Kahua provides good tooling for on the reporting side of things. So our second phase really was just supporting all of the custom business rules and process that the Clark construction team needed, and kind of pushing Kahua to some of its limits on the functionality side with the platform, but really using it to its full potential rather than just using it as sort of a data storage mechanism and using it as a real business process engine for managing the project teams. And then kind of the last phase of everything was one, supporting the migration rollover. It's a migration, so migrations take time. So we were kind of hand in hand with Steve for a good year or so on the overall project, ducking in and out as needed and helping answer questions and fix anything that came up with that process. But a migration just, from a planning perspective takes more time than anything else, and really making sure that you have all your ducks in a row when you set up your cutover. But then after that, the users are going to get their hands on it. The migration has happened as of today and has been out in the wild for 6+ months at least now. And so things change. The process that we thought was perfect 6 months ago, it has minor changes that need to be made. And we have an agreement in place with Steve to help fund any ongoing enhancements that come up, small or large. Ultimately, they've all been small so far, but if new issues come up or processes need to change or new business rules need to be implemented because there are places where the business is getting stuck, we have the tools in place to be able to help Steve and his team get that implemented quickly with a lot of the tools that Kahua provides that can be done in as little as a week into production if we so choose.
So Steve, could you elaborate on that? That's interesting that you had already determined that you needed to relook at a lot of business processes and re-engineer some of those processes, went through a thorough effort to do that, got it all up and running, and then it sounds like there were a few processes that we still needed to tweak again. Did I get that right? And kind of what's the impact of being able to do that?
Well, we have had a few minor tweaks, nothing major, but I think overall we accomplished what we set out to. When you look at the form and the interface that running was able to create in Kahua, we were able to mirror everything that operations wanted, all the fields that they wanted, all the business logic that they wanted, the parts and revision automation. Basically, you can go, as Ian alluded to, you can go into a 10-item change order that's maybe part one, and select, you want to create a different part, select 5 of those 10 items and create part 2 and split it off and then proceed with part 2. So it eliminated a lot of manual work that the users were having to do in the old process. We also checked we checked the click count afterwards, and we had gotten that 347 click process down to 166. So we had a 52% reduction in clicks. So we were pretty pleased.
No, so that kind of leads to the next question I had for you. That's a partial answer. What does a typical project look like today after kind of working through this integration project, and what are some of the ways that are different? Obviously, that click count is pretty spectacular. Are there other things that are different now that you've completed this effort?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and it is going to be tough to measure, is that with the expanded form now, hopefully we've eliminated the need for these side spreadsheets. There's now a place in Kahua to store what operations found was the kind of the driving factors behind the side spreadsheets. So there's places for all that now. So we've not only given them a place to do it and eliminate the side spreadsheet, but we think that also is going to have a long-term benefit on kind of our corporate data quality, because now we have that data in a place where we can access it from a corporate standpoint, not just in spreadsheets that are floating around. But overall to the end user, we think that by adopting the processes that ops recommended, and verifying it with the click count reduction, we think life is definitely improved, and and we eliminated the need to have folks going into SAP directly, as opposed to just staying in Kahua, where we know they're already working for the bulk of the other work they're doing throughout the day.
Ian, let me ask you how this integration was different from other PMIS integrations that Running has accomplished in the past. I'm sure you've been involved in 13 years. You've been involved with a lot of different projects like this. How is it different from those?
Yeah, so historically, most PMIS systems are fixed. They have a certain number of fields that are available to you, a certain process that is associated to those fields. The way that we are forced to integrate with those systems ends up being very rigid, and so it gives the business a lot less flexibility in their ability to create a meaningful change. You're still just sort of taking it. In this case, if we had moved from, say, JD Edwards to SAP on Proliance, if we were going back a number of years, we would be limited, if there were any user-defined fields that we'd have access to create, a custom SAP contract number and then maintain the JD Edwards contract number at the same time. It gets a little trickier. The thing that Kahua provides is, again, a very flexible platform and a set of APIs that really allowed us to add all of the necessary fields. If there was anything missing, any metadata Steve needed, any form changes that were necessary on the business side to change the layout for SAP that made sense. Hey, there's a detail section in SAP that reflects these 5 fields that we'd really like to see on the Kahua side. It's very easy for a Kahua app developer to add those fields so that you get a good one-to-one mapping, and then you also have the ability to group those fields properly as well. So the tooling on the platform side that Kahua provides really gives a lot of flexibility to both the business and the development team to be able to create something relatively easily and quickly that fits what the business would expect. And then on top of that, again, the APIs just surface all of these fields. So as we're adding any of the custom metadata that's necessary, not only does it get added to the reporting data store that Kahua provides. So in Clark's case, they leverage that data store with external reporting tools like Tableau and Power BI to extract some of that data and create alignment reports between your finance system and Kahua to make sure things are actually in alignment and the integration is working properly. So it gives you a good validation point. But it also gives us the ability on the API side to very easily get those data elements out using standard API protocols that are industry wide standards at this point. So.
Okay, Steve, I'll give you a chance to add to that if you have any comments to that. But I also wanted to ask a last question to you for now. What are the three biggest benefits of this project and of working with the team that you selected? What are the three best outcomes? But again, feel free to comment on what Ian said about differing this project. But then what are the three biggest benefits from this effort?
Okay, biggest benefits, I think we sound like a bit of a broken record here, but I think between us, we've probably said flexibility, 10 times. But that flexibility gave us the ability to improve efficiency by being able to, change these forms, change these processes, add automation. We were able to create the efficiencies there. So, or we were enabled to create the efficiencies. So I think that was one. The other was by being able to eliminate these needs for side spreadsheets and things. We've improved our data quality and we've consolidated it. We've made it something more accessible to our corporate reporting structure. And I think thirdly, just reducing overall costs. We were able to eliminate some siloed applications and the infrastructure and maintenance that goes along with those. From a development standpoint, when I've got a team like Runding that's already familiar with the systems that we're working with, as well as the construction process, I can engage them on an as-needed basis, and I don't need to keep on-staff developers. So that I think greatly reduced our development and our overall migration costs.
Excellent. All right, we'll stop picking on you two for a few minutes, and I'd like to introduce our next two panelists. So with us today, Brandon Shaw, and Brandon is a senior manager of consolidated real estate systems with Floor & Decor. Floor & Decor is a multi-channel specialty retailer of hard surface flooring and related accessories with an annual revenue of nearly $3 billion. Also with us is Vikas Honda. Vikas is a proven leader with 32 plus years of experience in the leading and managing of global IT service organizations, IT strategy and global delivery. As co-founder and chief operating officer, chief technology officer at OnIndus, Honda manages all operations, finance, technology, assets, global delivery, and all technology partner relationships. So welcome to both of you guys. And again, Brandon, we'll start with you and just ask you to add a little bit of color to that. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and about the work at Floor & Decor.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Brandon Shaw with Floor & Decor, Senior Systems Manager. We have pretty tremendous goals here at Floor & Decor, as you may see us display on Wall Street and our earnings and what our growth patterns are over the next several years. Generally speaking, we're trying to grow 20% year over year. Obviously, saying that means a lot of growth, a lot of efficient processes needed. A lot of streamlined and automations were needed, right? So what I do here at Floor & Decor is essentially manage our processes and our team, the technology team, as well as the financial systems of Floor & Decor. What that entails is our ERP system, as well as systems related to real estate and construction. So my main goal over the last 3 years has been automating and making sure we have the most efficient system possible for the construction team to then, act on our 20% growth year over year. So.
Okay, Vikas.
Thanks, Nick, for the introduction. My name is Vikas Handa. I'm one of the founding partners and chief technology officer at OnIndus. At OnIndus, we specialize in helping construction owners realize their PMIS applications potential by managing and integrating technology solutions so they can manage their capital programs. I've been in the IT industry, as Nick mentioned, for more than 30 years and have done hundreds of projects on integration.
So we'll give the first question to Brandon. Brandon, can you tell us what your goals were as you approached your integrations project, and what would you be integrating with, and why were those things important to Floor & Decor?
Sure. We connected with Kahua pretty much at the beginning of leaving our previous PMIS solution. Integration-wise, we were had two goals, short-term and long-term. So our short-term goal was we need to get into our new system because a renewal was coming up for our previous system, which we did not want to act on. Long-term, creating automations for integration, such as passing financial data, invoices, payments, things of that nature. Long-term, to have a automated and seamless process for our accounting team to then kind of mine data for on the ERP side. Short-term, we migrated, like I said, from our previous PMIS solution to our current system, Kahua, with the help of OnIndus, migrating massive amount of data, from files to financial data to entity information, customer information, contractor information, terabytes of data. How we approached it, to kind of answer your question, is pretty much just formulating a game plan, right, from an agile perspective, and connecting with partners such as OnIndus to kind of help us mold what our vision is to what we can actually do from a systems perspective with their knowledge of the Kahua platform.
Excellent. So Vikas, OnIndus does this kind of work every day. As you approach this particular opportunity to work with Kahua and Floor & Decor, what made this project unique from your perspective? Were there particular challenges you saw going in?
This project was fairly unique, Nick. As Ben mentioned, not only did it require two integration between Kahua and backend accounting systems, they also wanted data to be moved from the current PMIS applications, and they had tons of data, almost 4 terabytes of data sitting in documents and all cost information. So with Brandon and the Floor & Decor team, I think we all visualized that we can use the integration platform to even do the migration as well. So we even use the whole integration tool set, automated middleware processes, to move all this data from legacy applications to Kahua. That was a fairly big deal, so that users will have all data in Kahua before they could start using it, And once the data was there for them, it made the training fairly effective. Another thing that we had to do was, because the data volume was humongous, we had to build some governance and reconciliation in the process. What I mean by that is, we had to make sure that we could produce reports that match cost, entity information, data across both applications, and prove that every penny kind of was moved from old to new, and all documents and their versions made it to the new system. So that whole endeavor of reconciliation and governance, that was fairly unique in my opinion, to kind of give the stakeholders a peace of mind that everything made it to the new system.
Okay, so Brandon, can you tell us briefly how Floor & Decor selected OnIndus and Kahua also as your technology partners, and how you selected your internal team? Who from Floor & Decor would run point on this project, and what were the important qualities or qualifications that you saw for this team?
Sure. No, that's a great question. I'll start with how we picked Kahua. We went through a full procurement process where we went out for RFP towards the end of our term of our previous PMIS solution. So we had a detailed document of exactly what we wanted, how we wanted it, and videos, as well as testing environments to test the solutions from a sample perspective, to then proceed with purchasing and contracting for a system and platform. We had 5 individuals participate in that RFP. It swindled down to about 2 towards the end. And at the end of the day, it came down to cost, as well as nimbleness of how the system can kind of mold into the solution that we really want at the end of the day, right? How we got into business and working with OnIndus in the beginning, our account executive with Kahua provided Vikas's information, as well as Sid Shah, and we had preliminary calls on just what they do as a whole, what their company does, their business model, and things of that nature. We hit it off fairly well. They struck me as, very intelligent, nimble, and agile members of overall integration process, and really technology partner for any needs IT related. So that's how we got involved with OnIndus in particular. what were the important qualities and qualifications for the team that was selected to work on the project. Really somebody that has experience with, these type of platforms, the construction business process and systems, and then, a technical means of understanding exactly how systems work on the back end, right, to invoke the actual business front end process itself. So we had a solution architect, key tech leader, myself, on the team, and then we had one stakeholder that was the senior director of construction here at Floor & Decor that led the business processes. So he would point and pick what he wants, and we would help him understand how we would do it from a systems perspective. But those two key members working hand in hand really made the project successful, as well as kind of removed any dead weight, so to speak, on time loss.
So Brandon, you said that you had a detailed document when you made selection of Kahua and the team. But I want to ask, did you do further discovery? How did you determine what that exact scope was before you'd really had a lot of experience working with a team? Was there a continual discovery? Were there workflow sessions with OnIndus? What was that part like in fleshing out those details? I guess I'm asking also, is that first document where you said we knew what we wanted in this detailed document, did you wind up getting exactly that, or did you learn along the way?
So this is our third, that's a great question. This is our third PMIS solution at Floor & Decor. We have seen it done several different ways. We've developed processes and systems from a system perspective, our own way. And going into this RFP, the document had about 500 rows of ask of, hey, we need this requirement. It'd be great if we had this. Do you have any plans to do this, right? Just kind of those three kind of categories in that document. We formulated it based off of pretty much hive knowledge of going through three systems, right? What's worked, what hasn't worked, and things of that nature. As we went through the design session itself with Kahua, as far as, hey, we want it done this way, we did see that in the actual sample environment testing that some of the processes out of the box invoked what we were looking to perform, as far as our actual workflows kind of in line with Kahua's processes. We had some things that wanted to take a step further that didn't perform out of the box, which we ended up still working with OnIndus to develop. But overall, it was a good learning curve as far as exactly how Kahua works and how other companies such as ourselves have performed and built systems similar to the out-of-the-box functionality in Kahua.
So, Vikas, I'll ask you, it seems there's always some technical surprises on an intricate project like this. Were there any gotcha or aha moments along the way? And if so, how did you address them?
We sure had our issue of state of challenges in the project, and I'll talk about a few of them. As we mentioned earlier, the data volumes was so high in this integration migration that we knew that we couldn't do a big bang approach. So at the very onset, we had to make sure that integration could be done in batches, so that we wouldn't load the system or the servers or the network. So the whole integration services were modularized, so they could be run in batches. And obviously, and ensuring that the sum total of all batches should be, the whole data set, So that was a challenge on its own. This also helped us with testing, because as Ben mentioned earlier, Floor & Decor had a very stringent, plan of testing this whole rollover. So by doing integration in batches, we could do all sorts of business testing and integration testing and UAT, So that this batch approach really helped our project plan from that perspective. Upon the end of the document migration, we also had to make sure that all the documents were properly assigned to the respective project folders, in the new application, as well as the documents needed to be also shown as reference documents in the cost entities. So if you're looking at a contract, for example, or looking at a change order, they also wanted these documents to be physically visible in the Kahua application as a reference document. So we have to make sure that those linkages were done after data migration. Another thing that we faced a challenge, which is most commonly missed in integrations, is on data quality. Data quality is always an issue, and I heard Ian talk about that earlier in his chat as well. That you will get data, that will make your integration error out. So at the very beginning, we envisioned that there will be data issues, and there were. And we planned for error handling routines and fault tolerance in our integration, so that when data errors happen, the integration pipelines would error out gracefully. Let the users know what is erroring out, let the users a chance to fix the data, and then rerun those pipelines, and ensure that all this rerunning and error handling shouldn't cause any duplication of data on the target site. So that was another way to make sure the data integrity is maintained in Kahua. Lastly, there was a unique challenge that we felt here was there are a lot of cost entities in the current applications that FloorDecor had were in pending status. What I mean by that is they weren't approved; they were still waiting in somebody's queue in their old application to be approved. So when these entities, this data was migrated, we had to make sure that we would assign them proper workflows in Kahua, so that when they show up in Kahua, they're sitting in somebody's queue to be worked upon. We didn't want this data to be kind of lost in a black box upon finishing of integration. So those were, I think, some of the unique challenges that we faced. And like I mentioned earlier, we were able to move all data from source to target, from multiple applications and documents. And the documents had multiple versions as well. So if anybody knows documents, knows the versions are a very important piece of a PMIS. So we have to make sure that the right version shows up, and all that. So moving 4 terabytes of data, almost 200,000 documents, and all the cost entities within a record 3-4 months, 0 errors, I think was a huge accomplishment for our team, and Brandon and his stakeholders supported automation all the way, so it was a partnership between us and FloorDecor that helped us truly, give them the best value out of this PMS.
Well, Vikas, you might have answered my next question. I'm going to give you a chance to do that, but I'll ask both. Brandon, we'll start with you, and Vikas, we'll give it back to you. But here's the question: what was the most impressive result of this project? And what, maybe in other words, what are you most proud of or pleased with? Brandon?
Yeah, no, another great question. I think it's a little scary looking to change, enterprise level systems, right? Like any normal person looking to take on a task such as that. Integrations as well. It's kind of like looking over a cliff and just looking into the abyss of, okay, how are we going to tackle this, right? Especially if you have a small team in relation to how we attack the solution. But I think the most impressive thing was really, we got this done. I mean, all the data points Vikas just mentioned in about 3 months, really, of actual hard, like actual heavy lifting, so to speak. So 3 months time frame, I mean, it's phenomenal, including testing, right, and onboarding. Really, the whole platform we got up fairly quickly. I would suffice to say it's probably the fastest, implementation that's ever been done on the Kahua side, I believe. Other than that, I mean, very impressed with the way OnIndus worked. Very agile, very very keen on detail. Never really had to manage them, so to speak. They were a great partner. We worked very well together. So just the camaraderie and how we attacked the solutions together with OnIndus, the timeline overall, and what we did, the size of the actual project itself was very impressive.
Vikas?
I think we have covered most of it, but still, I think from what I said earlier, being able to prove to stakeholders that through reports and governance that the numbers across all the contracts, and all the change orders and all invoices and POs match in both systems to the penny. That I think was a huge accomplishment, for us to make them believe, that this project was a success. And secondly, like I said earlier, having all data in the new system before end user training, that was a huge win, because change management anyway is key, for all the business users to learn a new application. But if they see their old existing data and all documents already loaded up, historical documents loaded up in the new application, I think the confidence goes up. And I felt the business users who use the system, they really were encouraged to see their own data and play with that. And that helped us with adoption, downstream. So those were, in addition, some things that I'm really proud of.
All right.
The only other thing I would add was, our main goal was really to kind of flip the lights off and flip the lights back on, and we're in our new system. That was our vision, and that's pretty much the best scenario to describe, the project and how the implementation went. So very impressed on our side.
Excellent. Thank you both. And actually, we want to thank all of our panelists for walking through their journeys with us. This was very impressive, the work you've done. We do have some Q&A from our audience, and we're going to begin to take that. We'll take as many of those questions as we can today and do our best to get back with anybody that puts a question in to the queue. So, audience, please go ahead and do that at your leisure, and I'll begin to ask. This is a question for Brandon and then for Steve. And the question is, how long did this work take? What did it cost? Was it worth it? So very succinct. I'm going to give you a little buffer as a moderator and just say it would be very difficult for any individual to make a relationship between the integration that their team might need for their organization with their products. Every situation seems to be very different. I don't know how valuable this answer would be. You're also very different organizations, very different structurally, but for what that's worth, this is a hard question to answer, but I'll ask Brandon and Steve if you want to take a stab at that.
Sure. I can go first. Well, cost-wise, it was within budget. As far as how long did it take, as described, 3.5 months, so ahead of schedule, actually. And was it worth it? Definitely was. OnIndus exceeded our expectations and worked very well together.
Excellent. Steve, any thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. So from a time standpoint, our overall our migration with respect to the change portion probably took about a year. But that wasn't steady work for the Kahua or running teams. That was a lot of start and stop because we had to build out parts of SAP. We had to stand up test environments, things like that. So probably about 4 months overall, steady work if you had to look at it that way. From a cost standpoint, as you mentioned, it's a bit of apples and oranges. It wasn't cheap, but I think in terms of looking at our overall SAP migration, this was probably a rounding error on that. And again, from a comparison standpoint, you'd really have to look at, what does your scope consist of in terms of, form changes, logic, business rules, automation, all that. It's going to be different company to company.
Okay. Thank you both for that. That is a tough one to answer, but thanks for those quality answers. Next question comes to the entire panel, but actually I'm going to limit this again to Brandon and Steve if we can. You'll understand when you hear the question. What other integrations have you done before? If we let Ian and Vikas answer that list would just go on and on and on, as that's what those guys do every day. So, Brandon, what other integration projects have you worked before? And then Steve, I'll ask you the same question.
Sure. So we've done other SFTP type integrations like the model that was shown on the screen for other systems in relation to passing invoice information and payment data back for other departments. We've worked on integrations where we pull in estimating data. We have other integrations with our Profix financial system in relation to our POS solutions. And it's pretty much all the solutions I've been a part of, or integrations I've been a part of. What was the other part of your question? Sorry.
That was it. Just what other integrations have you done? So, Steve, we'll turn to you.
All right. I guess relevant ones. In 2004, we did our Constructware to JD Edwards. That was our first PMIS to ERP integration, and that was what we call more of a poor man's point-to-point. We basically had a staging table in SQL that sat in between the two systems, and then scripting that moved records back and forth. And then in 2015, when we moved to Kahua, we did a JD Edwards or a Kahua to JD Edwards integration with MuleSoft as the middleware. And then actually when we were talking about the current integration, we didn't talk about it, but so our current Kahua to SAP is using Talend as the middleware.
Okay, super. Thank you both. Here's a question that I'll take. Is Kahua a Runding product? No, but thanks for asking. But we are very proud to have Runding Corporation as one of our partners, very proud to have OnIndus as our partner. And I hope our audience today is seeing the value of these partnerships and how these firms bring expertise to the Kahua family that no one firm could bring. So we're very glad to have these guys on our list of partners. All right, question for Vikas. Vikas, what parameters should be considered when selecting an enterprise integration tool and an implementation partner?
So I think that's again I'm a little biased because I prefer cloud solutions just based on how the technology world is heading. So there are tons of players, as we all know, in both cloud and on-prem. So I'm a firm believer in cloud integration tools, because I work with almost all of them, from Microsoft to Oracle to SnapLogic to you name it, and I work with them. I think the few big items to think about are, one of them is obviously high availability. You need to make sure the tools that you pick is easy to deploy and available at all times. Secondly, they should offer multiple connection methods. What I mean by that is they should be able to handle the API data coming in and flat files and whatnot. So handling different data formats through a tool is another requirement. These days, a lot of government agencies require platforms to be in multiple locations. So helping kind of location preference, making sure that there is some load balancing of servers in different locations, for disaster recovery is also a parameter. And in the end, any software of this kind which is doing integration should have good auditing capability. What I mean by that is, you should be able to track all the data coming in, how it is transformed, how it is exported, imported, so that there is visibility to kind of for error handling. So this is, in my opinion, some short answer on how to pick up integration tool. In terms of picking a partner, I think again, very you need to find a partner who has worked with these emerging technologies, especially in the cloud. You need to look for partners who's flexible, like Steve was saying earlier. Should be able to work around the customer's project requirements. And lastly, flexibility is very important in this, because integration is typically built in phases. So you need a partner, who has experience and somebody who you can trust, to work alongside you, and building these mappings.
Okay, thank you. Here's a quick one. Has Kahua done these integrations for counties, agencies, and other state agencies? And I would simply suggest the answer is yes. The answer is yes in great numbers. We work with many county, state, and federal agencies. We work with government agencies outside the U.S. as well. So I would encourage our listeners to look at kahua.com/industries/government, and you'll see a fine list of project examples, case studies, and so forth there. So thanks for that very good question. Here's one for Ian. Ian, does Runding only work for contractors?
No. So Runding originally started working in the owner vertical on a different piece of software called Proliance. And again, with the sort of sunsetting of that software, we wanted to find another very flexible tool that had good APIs to allow us to provide both our business consulting expertise on the workflow and process side of things, along with also supporting our technical expertise as well. So having good APIs, having open APIs, and a responsive development team that helps us get the data in and out of the system that we need. So Kahua was probably one of the most open and flexible platforms when we went searching a handful of years ago, and has continued to just expand on that flexibility and its ability to allow us to do what we need in kind of both of those spaces. And that's also allowed us to kind of grow into not just the owner market, which Kahua originally had some owners, but I think the vast majority of Kahua's larger clients that needed business and technical consulting were on the general contractor side. So we very quickly, obviously being in the industry, were able to pick up what the general contractors needed in the same way that we understood what the owners needed, and help them implement Kahua on the PMIS side quickly. So we do primarily work with a lot of owners and large general contractors, or really any general contractors that have a need for integration to help them find a cost-effective solution to the problem that they're trying to solve.
Excellent. Thank you both. So here's a question I'm going to ask Ian. I'm going to include you in this one as well. And Vikas, are some tools easier to do integrations with? Are some tools almost impossible to integrate with? And I don't know that I want you to answer by giving specific negatives. We don't want to go there today, but I'll let you answer the question as you see fit. Ian, are some tools easier and some tools almost impossible?
I mean, some are non-existent. It's really, in a lot of cases, and I see Vikas laughing because he understands that, anything can be integrated with. The level of effort and the cost associated to those integrations is going to vary wildly, especially in the construction industry, where there are still a lot of legacy systems hanging around. Again, from a technical perspective, our move has really been, let's move into cloud solutions because of all of those things that Vikas described. But we also understand there's still a lot of construction clients that have on-prem finance systems that they've been using for the last 15 years that they really don't want to get rid of. And sometimes it's encouraging them to do so and giving them the cost reasons why that would be effective and the cost to perform those migrations. And in other cases, it's near impossible and is going to cost a lot of money. But if that is the system that is continuing to meet your business needs and you don't have any desire to move off of it, always happy to support that as well. It just, we want to make sure clients understand the pros and cons of approaching solving the problem in that particular way, and potentially how they may be able to do it better.
Vikas, you want to add to that or give some color?
I think my 2 cents is, any software vendor in this industry that allows open APIs, if you would, secure open APIs, that's a kind of good place to start, because that allows people to integrate with their software. Most tools that I've seen, they allow imports, exports at least of data in the system. Now, it's a good way to do one-off integrations, but I'm not too fan of that, because I've seen a lot of issues, as you can imagine, with scheduling, and automation and error handling, and security becomes a big concern if people are doing import exports manually. So it really depends on the vendor, how much support the vendor is giving to integration. And I believe so, as Ian was saying, a lot of people that we work with, a lot of old products in this space don't have integration capabilities, so it's fun to work with tools like Kahua, and some others, which have open APIs. It makes job of tech folks like us very easy to integrate.
All right, thank you. That's a good answer. I've got several questions about specific applications, asking if we've done integrations for these things. Famous, Banner, the list goes on in the question box. So I'm simply going to defer to your last answers. Just about anything we can do an integration with just about anything. I don't know if I can give you specifics on every particular Famous, for example, or Banner, for example, very popular among school clients, and I can tell you that.
Banner does have all the APIs, if you would, Nick. So we have done tons of work with Banner, so we can talk more offline. But Banner is very easy to integrate with these days. The new version of Banner, SCM Banner, that most counties schools use. It's a fairly open application, and easy to integrate with them.
Okay, excellent. The last point I would make, we've got many school clients. Those are very popular tools. I'd be surprised if we haven't done that work yet. You see on your screen, audience, that each of the contacts, each of our presenters here today, our contact information is there. Feel free to get in touch with us afterwards. We will do our best to reach out to anybody whose question did not get answered. We've got just a few minutes left. I've got one last question that I want to ask for any panelist to answer. We'll need at least one of you from each team. But the question is, what might the next big initiative be for Clark and Runding? Are there other areas to improve on? And we asked the same question for OnIndus and Floor and Decor. Do you have a next big initiative planned? Do you have some things that you're eyeballing? And what are the other areas that you'd want to improve on? Steve, let's start with you. Or let me say the Clark and Runding team will start with you, and you guys can decide who wants to answer that.
All right, you want me to take that, Ian?
Yeah, there's nothing I'm aware of at the moment, so it'd be great to hear if you have something available for us.
Well, you'll remember we had a project that actually got interrupted by the SAP project, and what we're looking at is bringing in our P6 schedule data. We think there's a lot of opportunities there to bring in the schedule data, integrate it with submittals for material tracking, integrate it with our daily reports. That'll give us the ability to almost do real-time schedule updates, as well as support daily reports that are kind of in the style of what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does, where they tie everything back to a schedule ID. So I think that would probably be my next big item.
And to add to that, Runding provides out of the box, effectively, P6 integration for Kahua today. So we manage both P6 and MS project schedules in Kahua, and that's a purchasable application through the Kahua sales team. And Runding can provide additional customization and support to that application too. And as Steve noted, they have some integration needs as well, where there may be some customizations necessary to get that done. But we have seen a huge amount of interest, and it has been very effective to be able to get that data in there. And Kahua makes it easy to tie your schedule data to multiple entities across the entirety of the system relatively easily, to drive dates and drive some of the due dates and process dates that you may want out of your schedule inside of Kahua on the business application side of things.
Excellent. So 1 minute left. Brandon, Vikas, any big initiatives left on the table for your team?
I think Ben, one thing Ben talks about a lot is, at least Floor Decor, is to be able to build a enterprise data warehouse with all data coming from Kahua and other accounting apps, so that we can do like true trend reporting on that cost controls data, because I think their purpose is to be able to kind of be able to even predict to some degree outcome of a project. So that's kind of a goal in the sky that we have, to be able to do AI and other cool stuff on all cost control data coming from Kahua. Right, Brandon? I think it's something which we have spoken a lot.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Vikas. Brandon, did you have something to add to that?
Oh, no, I was just, I would add, we're working on fleshing out a couple processes as well, just building on top of kind of what you have from a platform perspective. So that and that pie in the sky idea.
All right. Well, thank you all. I want to take this moment, just thank you all on behalf of Kahua and everybody on our panel. We are so grateful that you attended today. We will do our best to follow up with answers to all the questions. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Please join me in thanking our presenters as well as our sponsor, Kahua, for a great presentation. If you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to click the Email Us button on your console, and we'll share them with our presenters so they can respond to you directly. You will be redirected to our post-event survey at the end of the webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you on how we can make our programs work better for you. Please visit enr.com/webinars for the archive of this presentation to share with your colleagues, as well as information about our upcoming events. Make sure to tune back in for our next webinar, the 2020-2022 Top Design Firms Unveiled, airing next week on May 4th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you found this webinar to be a good investment of your time. Have a great day.